Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, back again with Star Trek Picard. Last time on Star Trek Picard, we started off the season finale with part 1 of this one. So, what all happened last time?
Well, they made it through the transwarp wormhole, whatever it was, the Borg wormhole. They were essentially dragged to the planet's surface by gigantic orchids.
Yep.
And then they met the rest of the synthetic people, the androids, some of whom appear to have an agenda to essentially go to war against the organics, and others who are not quite sure that that's what's happening. But we also did get the revelation that there is, in fact, another place where there are other synthetics.
Yeah. like higher being...
Yeah.
synthetics that can fulfill the prophecy, basically, which is starting to become a self-fulfilling prophecy because the Romulans are like, oh, there's a prophecy, so we need to go beat them, and then the synthetics are like, well, there's this prophecy, so we should go beat them, and it's like, well, if neither of you had this thought, it'd be fine.
Yeah. And to me, the most intriguing thing was the existence of a golem, where they're obviously going to, or it seems obvious, that they're going to put somebody's mind into it, but we don't know whose yet.
Yeah. Now, I was thinking, I have a new theory about what it could be. It could be possible, because the whole thing from the beginning was that it's possible that some of Data's neurons still existed within Daj and Soji. So it could be that they could extract that from Soji and put that, and the golem could become Data again and essentially bring him back to life. I don't know how I would feel about that necessarily. Which is also what we said about, well, what if they put Picard in there? Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that either.
What if they put Dr. Soong in there? And that would give us the appearance of Data without actually being completely Data.
Yeah, they could do that.
Let's find out.
Yeah. And before we do that, we have to go over the whole thing about how you can watch this episode.
CBS.
Yeah. It happens. It happens with some of my other shows too. So if you want to watch our reaction to this episode of Star Trek Picard, unfortunately it is not in this video due to copyright issues, so what you gotta do is head down in the description or to the pinned comment. There's a link there, and that has our reaction. And you can watch it. It's just like normal, edited. Footage is down here. It's all completely normal. It's just one link away, and then when you're done with that, you can pop right back over to this YouTube video and watch the discussion. So with that said, we should probably go ahead and get into the season finale for Star Trek Picard Season 1. Here we go. I imagine with Dr. Girardi, it's like, well, it's a battlefield pardon. We'll let that go.
Well, yeah, it must be. I'm surprised they didn't mention it because they pretty much tied up every other loose end.
Yeah. So, the golem, they put him in there. He's not any different. And he's still going to die like in maybe 6 years.
Yeah, I'm surprised that he's 94, but...
Yeah, 94 was also a shock. Like, because if he was... Patrick Stewart's in his 80s, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, if he's in his 80s, it gives him 10 more years at least.
Yeah.
So, it's a little odd. It's like, well, we can do another season with him, but I mean, we're not going to keep him around forever, basically.
Yeah.
So...
as Kirk says in one of the Star Trek movies, running around the galaxy is a young man's game. So,
yeah.
I'm sure they'll come up with another 10 episodes of something, but he's not a young man, and he can't be the adventure hero for long.
It is interesting that they have greenlit a second season.
Yeah,
because it's like, no, if you just had it like this and be like, okay, and they all go off, they do their own thing, and then Picard will just naturally die of old age. And it's like, and that's that. We don't need anything else. And the fact that this is such a contained story, it's like, yeah, there's nothing to tie us into another season.
Yeah.
Unless, I will look make sure. Okay. I wanted to make sure there was no after credits scene, like Narissa, climbs back up the Borg cube and is alive or something. Yeah. It's like, I get what 7 of 9 were saying about killing people. I'm glad Narissa's dead, though. So,
what happened to Narek? Did we see what happened to him?
No, actually.
So there's another loose end they didn't tie up.
Yeah, that is interesting. I mean, maybe they arrested him. Maybe they swapped instead of like, well, maybe it's a cover-up. Like, the higher-ups are like, oh, Dr. Girardi, it was under duress. We could just say Narek did that somehow.
Yeah.
We won't go into details.
Minor things.
Yeah.
But very emotional. I mean, obviously well done. It's a good storyline.
Yeah.
Overall. Rather surprised by the Uber synths, because
that was a little much.
You can understand then why people would be afraid of them because they appear to be monsters.
Yeah, because that's the thing. If they opened a portal and just ships came through,
yes.
And it was like, okay, well, yeah, that they are as dangerous as, well, the Federation that's here or the Romulans that showed up. Yeah. But the fact that that was just straight out of the Avengers, where Loki's army with the Chitauri is coming through. It's like if those were actual monsters coming through a crimson red portal, and it's like that was a little much.
I think would have been, again, just my opinion, what would have been really cool is if the portal opened up and a single ship, larger than all 400 of the Romulans and Federation put together, just sat there at the opening, and they all went, we are like ants to them. And then when she said no, go back, and then you could literally see it pulling back rather than just closing the portal on them.
Yeah.
So something, because they have now literally set up the synthetic beings, whoever they are, as very scary.
Yeah. I could see that being a future Star Trek show, maybe for a while, because we prevented them from appearing. But maybe if somehow, I mean, I could see it where it's like on a different show, because I don't think this would be season 2 of Picard, but on a different show where the synthetics themselves break through instead of waiting for a portal by Seb Sheneb and everything. Like if they broke through, they would be a serious threat. It'd kind of be like the Dominion War all over again. So
also Dr. Sung deactivated Sutra. What happened there exactly? I mean, he flipped the little switch and she...
Yeah, I think it was something like that, or just like a small, maybe like a concentrated EMP or something just to deactivate her. It worked surprisingly well, because I was thinking, when he gave it back and he was confronting her, it's like, oh, he's about to die. Like, she is just going to straight up kill him. It's like, nope, he got her, and, well, I guess she's gone. We don't see her ever again, so I guess that's that. And no one else saw that. Soji didn't even see that, so it is one of those things where it's like it's like the small things where it's like, well, what happened there? But oh well, we don't really need to focus on that. So like with Narek, I guess. So to go into the notes, the first thing I wrote down was the Android tool that they had. And it's like, oh, you have to imagine it, and then it'll do that. That was a little much as well. I guess I can understand it, but the only thing is like if this came from the higher synths, that would make sense, Yeah,
I kind of got the impression that it was either their design or something like that. But yeah, I mean, the idea is it's beyond our particular capabilities because it is powered by your imagination. You tell it what to do and it does it, even if you don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So, that was...
It sounds like the sonic screwdriver.
Yeah.
Now, the effect that they did for it with all, like, the little things coming out and then repairing it, that kind of worked. Like, okay, I could see this as some great technology on a Star Trek show. And I could also see, like, maybe this is something that the Borg would have. Just change the color green. It looks like a Borg device. Yeah. But you have to remember, it's like, okay, well, this is from these androids. These androids are from Dr. Sung. So is Dr. Soong capable of creating something like that? Would be my only thing. So it was a little much. And then the fact that it's like, okay, you can imagine it, and then, it'll fix up the ship, even if you can't. And it will also create all these images across space, all these different images of the La Sirena. And it's like, well, that's handy. Man, we should keep this. Send it back to the Federation, have it mass-produced.
Well, theoretically, the Federation ships already have something like that, because we have it today. Modern bombers and fighters can send out these decoys, which, confuse radar and things like that. So the thing was, it's just La Serena's not a fighter ship. It's basically a cargo ship. It's a Millennium Falcon without the guns, really.
Right.
So they were only using that because they had nothing else.
True. But it would also be just the fact that it's such a great tool. It would be helpful.
Yeah.
I'd love to see any of their engineers, try to use that, like LaForge or O'Brien or Torres. So yeah, it seemed a little handy. So yeah. We had Ganmadan, Ganmadan, however they said that. Another Romulan word to add to the dictionary.
But yeah, I was about to say, it sounds like Ragnarok sounds like, the end of the world.
Yeah.
And then he said it's like, Ragnarok or Judgment Day. So yeah, there are, again, in pretty much every religion on Earth, there is some kind of story, not only of a creation story, but of an ending story.
And for the Romulans, it's this where now in the story it's supposed to be demons. And because that's even what Elnor says, is that they're demons. But it's the Zhat Vash that equate the demons to the synthetics, which is a little odd. But then they open the portal and it's like, yeah, those look like demons. So that is the one thing where it's like they should not have looked like that in the portal. It's like that's a little much. But I mean, it is interesting that because this is all, it's like, all this that we've had this season. With, this was all predicated on Data. And it's like, oh, well, it's Data's daughters. And it's like, okay, well, kind of Data's daughters, also Bruce Maddox. And then we're trying to figure out all this stuff. And it's like, and then we found this civilization of androids. And this is all also supposed to tie into a Romulan prophecy history lesson of demons. And it's like, okay, we're talking about androids, but I mean, this series has to, establishes, a lot about androids that we just haven't had on Star Trek yet, because the only one we've had is Data.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, yeah, it's a little odd. I wrote down Sutra. Yeah, Sutra just went down. It did seem a little fast. Like, well, she's gone. Soji didn't see that, so guess that's that. It was a little fast. And I wrote down Narissa, which I also specifically wrote down Narissa because it's the first time I've learned her name. Like, all this time I've just been like, oh yeah, well, Narek's sister, her. Yeah. So she finally died, which I'm glad for her, at least. And that's the thing too, it's like, when Narek left the Borg cube and then it shows Elnor following him, it's like, okay, good. This is not like, they're not going to screw things up too bad because we already know the two of them are there. So I did like that. The Picard maneuver, that was clever that they brought in the Picard maneuver. And actually, I feel like, the two of them on that ship, first off, it's probably the worst combination you could have had on that ship, is aging Admiral Picard and Dr. Jurati, who freaks out at everything. But that's the thing, is that the two of them on that ship, they were surprisingly calm, I felt like, for being in that situation.
And again, why didn't one or both of them, call up the navigation holo?
Yeah, I was waiting for that, for the holos to show up.
Because maybe there's one that's, a defense system, somebody who can, even though there's not a whole lot of defense on the ship. But
I mean, yeah, you would have to think the navigation one would be of help, because, normally it's just Rios there. So you would think that one would be able to help them out and maneuver it. Because, I mean, Picard did pick that up pretty fast, you know?
Well, again, they could have also called up the EMH when he started to have his headache pain there, and the EMH could have helped him out. But, you know, I mean, these are just minor things. But,
they are.
But
they're
having
nitpicks.
set them up, it then makes us wonder why they didn't use them.
Right. It would have actually been interesting if all 5 of them were activated and took up all the positions and ran the ship. That would have been interesting. But yeah, they did use the Picard maneuver, which they said was his maneuver on the Stargazer, where it basically made it look like there were 2 different Stargazers, and with the tool, they made it look like a million. Now, when the Romulans started firing on, you know, a million different La Sirenas, I was thinking, like, well, but there's nothing there, so wouldn't they just shoot through the projection and then hit the planet? But I guess it was alright, so... and then the fleet showed up. The Federation fleet did show up at the right time.
We kind of predicted that in the last episode.
Yeah. Now, it is interesting. They must have taken a swing around so that they got right in front. Because, yeah, that was a little weird. It's like, oh, they warped in right in front of the Romulans, you know, between the Romulans and the planet. It's like, well, wait, if they were coming from this way, they must have had to have swung around and do that. That's why they're like a few minutes late.
Yeah.
They had to do the swing around. But that was interesting. And at first I thought that Soji actually like reused the beacon and brought the Federation there. But it was just that the Federation happened to show up.
Yeah.
And we did get acting Captain Riker, which was pretty cool. Actually, just watching that, I was like, man, I want a show with him. I want Star Trek Riker. So, and especially just like when he was threatening General Commodore Navarrete or whatever her name was. I don't know. It's interesting that she would be the top general of, I guess, the Zhat Vash at least, because it's like, well, I mean, yeah, it's like, okay, well, you know, she was part of Starfleet. I guess there is no one higher than her. She's also half Vulcan, which is interesting. And it's like, okay, and she's the general. It's like, okay, I thought there would have been someone else, but
well, you know, once the plan to get rid of the synths is close to being completed, then she leaves Earth and, you know, joins the Romulan, or joins the Zhat Vash, not particularly the regular Romulans, but, you know, this has been her mission all along.
Yeah.
To find out where the synths are and to destroy them. So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. But yes, it's somewhat confusing.
It is also interesting that, because this is particularly the Zhat Vash, right? It's not the full Romulan fleet. And the Zhat Vash is still going with the treaties, which is a kind of odd. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, Picard was there first, and he's opening negotiations and everything, so, well, those treaties, I guess the Zhat Vash can't attack, and it's like, that seems a little odd that they just sort of gave up. And I guess it was more after the portal had been closed, after Soji closed the portal, that they were like, all right, let's get out of here. So I thought that was a little interesting.
Yeah, the Romulans are usually not ones to back down, and it's kind of surprising there wasn't some sort of form of battle there at the end.
Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to see that too. I was like, we have so many Federation and Romulan ships. I was like, okay, we haven't seen like a huge battle probably since...
at the end of Voyager, wasn't it?
Maybe. I was also going to say maybe there was some in Deep Space Nine against the Dominion, and the beginning of First Contact was a huge battle against the one Borg cube. So it's like, yeah, I want to see a huge Federation battle, a huge Star Trek battle with, you know, 2020 Star Trek technology that we have here, you know. Because that's the thing. Honestly, this show is kind of on par visually with the newest Star Trek movies. So, which is crazy that they can, you know, pull that off for television, you know, even just for streaming. So, yeah, it's like, I wanted to see that battle. So, oh well. Maybe season 2, or I bet you they have battles in Discovery, and we just don't watch it. So, oh well. So, let's see. The beacon, we did talk about that, and the portal, and that just seemed odd. That is just like, oh yes, look at all your brethren, these weird, totally monster-looking androids. Like, great, unless those are the ships, because I mean, like in Avengers, because this is straight out of Avengers, is, they had the giant, whales, but they also had the foot soldiers too. Yeah. Maybe we just didn't see the foot soldiers, but it's like, if you look at those, and then you look at the androids there, it's like, no, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, there's no correlation.
Yeah.
That was, again, poorly executed, in my opinion. But
yeah, but it also does lend itself to be like, okay, well, now I am curious about their story. Because you look at them and it's like, it's such a off design for these, higher synthetic beings. That it's like, okay, I want to know about these guys. Who created them, and like, and I wonder, like, if that somehow ties into the first Dr. Sung and when he created Data and lore and everything. It's like, is that possibly, like, did he get inspiration from them? Because I don't see how, but...
Now, the other thing that could have saved that is that when she began to close the portal, when Soji began to close the portal, if suddenly these tentacles started to literally just fade away, and then you see some kind of semi-humanoid synth in the middle of it all, who basically was projecting this to scare people away, but then we see that they're not these big creepy machines that everybody's been afraid of since the very beginning.
Yeah, because that's the thing. It basically, with the designs that they went with, it kind of proves the Romulans right. Where it's like, oh, well, yeah, no wonder they have this whole story about these demons coming down and stuff. It's like, when he was going over the whole thing, I was like, oh, yeah, and they harvest they eat people and stuff like that. It's like, these are androids. Do they even eat? It's like, I cannot imagine, like they're making this sound scary. It's like, yes, but look at this town of androids. They look like hippies. And it's like, they're going to be, feasting on children and everything. And, and then they open the portal. It's like, oh, well, that's where the Romulans get it.
Yeah. So.
It's like, that is terrifying. Anywho. The simulation. That was interesting. Although, okay, so where did they just have Data's consciousness there? Or did they actually extract it from Soji?
I don't know.
Because they never explained that. They just said, well, they're in a simulation and Picard will, be out of it in a little bit. And
they
then
must have had it there because then they created Daj and Soji out of Data's original, what was it? Positronic. Yeah. Whatever. So at least some of it must have been there.
Yeah.
And he finally just said, I don't want to go on like this.
Yeah.
I want to be finite.
Yeah, I feel like they should have mentioned that last episode then. When they're taking the tour, it's like, oh, yeah, this is, like, it would make sense, like, well, this is what Bruce Maddox was able to salvage was, this is all that's left of Data, basically.
Yeah.
And then that leads in, okay, then Picard's in the simulation, he talks to Data one last time, and then he comes out and then lets Data die, basically. Which, that whole conversation was really nice, and especially, I guess, because this is the first time in the whole season that's actually Data. So I did like that. And then, yeah, the most obvious thing that we guess is, yeah, Picard's gonna be in the Golem. But it's very weird, because it's like, okay, well, I mean, we're not gonna make you any better. You don't have superpowers or anything, and I mean, you're gonna die in a few years like you would have anyway. And it's like, then why did we bring up the brain abnormality at all? Because it's like, you've basically just undone everything without making him better. So it's like, so why did we do this? Because the brain abnormality, that wasn't in Next Gen, was it?
I think it was in the very last episodes when they were wrapping all of that up.
Okay. Yeah, I guess maybe.
Yeah, because doesn't the admiral that he goes to, Kirsten, whatever her last name was, she mentions something. You're an old man seeing things again, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it could be that because I remember the last episode of Next Gen is is Picard in 3 different times and they're trying to prevent something and Q is there. So I can imagine it might have been referenced in that. So, but yeah, so I guess then this is finally being like, okay, now we have to deal with this brain abnormality because we set it up all those years ago, so we have to do it. And then it's like, yeah, but we don't want to kill Picard because then we're down another captain because Kirk is dead in canon. So it's like, well, you've just brought him back and nothing has changed for him.
Other than he doesn't have the brain abnormality.
Yes.
So that allows him to go on new adventures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Season 2.
New adventures.
Subscribe.
For 4 years until he's dead. And that's the other weird thing is making him 94 years old. It's like, you didn't have to add the 10 extra years. You could have just been like, well, if you kept him at the age Patrick Stewart is now, it's like, all right, you got just the normal length. So it just seems a little odd. So it almost makes you wonder if it was just going to be the ending that Picard died, or maybe he'll, it was implied like, well, he does make it through the end of the episode, but, well, he'll die, back at Chateau Picard in France. So maybe it was a last minute rewrite of these 2 episodes to include the golem. Like maybe once the show was renewed for a 2nd season.
Could be.
They've
done that before. I mean, not specifically Star Trek, but yeah, seasons do that. Shows do that.
Yeah. So, but we did get one definite death, which was Data, because he wanted to live knowing that his life was finite, which is interesting. Which, I mean...
But, I mean, that was the perfect imagery where he said a butterfly that lives forever isn't a butterfly.
Yeah, that's true.
The butterfly starts out as the worm or the caterpillar and then transforms, but even that must come to an end. So he's basically saying, I understand that I wasn't built to die, but my entire life has been building to become human, and the ultimate thing to being human is that your life must end. So, I mean, it was a nice little touch there.
Yeah. And yeah, that's pretty much all I wrote down.
The other thing I was going to say was that I didn't even, last week when we watched the next to the last episode, I didn't even notice that the title of the 2 episodes, Et in Arcadia Ego. And I will confess I had to go look that up. And it's basically based on a Renaissance painting, which loosely translated is, even in paradise, death says, I am here. So that was basically what those last 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Even in this paradise, death will come, whether it comes from above, from the form of the Romulans, or the uber synths, or whatever, or in the fact that Picard simply has to give up his life in order to convince the synthetics that they don't have to fight. Or, as it ultimately turns out, it's Data who gives up his life. So it was just kind of interesting the way they tied all of that in.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I will say, too, about this episode is that it didn't have as much of the other synths as last episode did. Yeah. Because last episode is them, and particularly Sutra, turning on everyone and then swaying Soji, which we were wrong about it being a first contact thing, where Soji is like, well, I'm getting in there to gain their trust, but I'm not actually going to go through with this. I mean... that wasn't a conscious decision like Data did with the Borg. But, yeah, it's like, in this episode, it's like, well, Sutra's out, and I guess that's that, well, yeah, now we have to focus on Soji, which is good. We've been following Soji for pretty much the entire season, and, it's good we need to focus on her decision, but pretty much nothing. We don't have Sutra learning her lesson. We don't have the other synths talking about this, I mean, we had Dr. Sung, and then that was it. But and I guess that's the other thing is that just Sutra being taken out and completely written out of the episode is a little odd.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, it does work. Well, and also the fact that she was the one that killed Saga is really dumb. That it's Dr. Sung just happens to find the video and it's, Narek is there. He's holding Saga, and then she comes in and stabs, and it's like, why did you do that?
She did that because she wanted a war between the synths and the organics.
Yes.
And Sung even says, I'm obviously a lousy teacher. But, it's just that only with her, for some reason, she was motivated to start this war. He at some point, Sutra is able to convince some of the synths to go along with her, and others still hadn't made their decision, so he had to remove her in order to say, hey, listen, it was wrong. Look, the organics were willing to give up their lives to save ours, so we must take that into consideration. So
and she does have the motive, I feel like. The only reason she was the only one that, was able to start this, basically. I feel like her motivation could be Jana dying all those years ago.
Yeah.
But, so I get all of that. But why is she the one that specifically kills Saga when she specifically let Narek out anyway, and he could have just done that? So,
well, again, I don't know that she thought that anyone would recover that video of her doing it, because she needed Narek to be the scapegoat.
Yeah, I get it. It just seemed a little odd.
Perhaps we're overthinking this.
Probably. It's the tiny things in this episode that it's like, okay, don't overthink it,
Yeah.
But yeah, that is pretty much that.
That's that.
All right. Yeah, overall it was a really good season, I feel like. So, I have no idea how they would go on to do a second season, though.
It's going to have to be a completely different story.
Yeah, another story that Picard just will stumble into, basically. Because even this one is like, okay, they set up the backstory, they tied it into the destruction of Romulus and everything, and then they added in the attack on Mars, and it's like, yeah, what do you do next season? Everything is so tightly packed into this season that it's like, I don't know where they can go. So, but yeah, that is pretty much that. You got anything else?
No, we're not sure that we're going to review a second season if it comes out. A decision still to be made, perhaps.
Yeah, we'll think about it. I don't know. We might not. So you can stay tuned and find out. We'll keep you in suspense as if we'll do it or not.
Keep watching notifications from 7th Hour Films, and whenever the new season starts, just look for us.
Yeah, and we may or may not be there. So, yeah. That is pretty much that. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time.
Live long and prosper.
Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. If you want to rewatch all of our Star Trek Picard reactions from Episode 1, you can click on the playlist, you can subscribe if you haven't done that already, and be sure you hit that notification bell. You can support me on Patreon and follow me on social media, links below in the description. See you guys later.